Hey creeps! If you watched my last video, then you know that I had the privilege of attending the world's largest Halloween and horror convention, Midsummer Scream. In short, Midsummer Scream did not disappoint. I absolutely loved it. There was so much to see and do, and I definitely see myself attending another one in the future. To start, I want to show you some of the highlights from the convention, followed by the patches that I was able to purchase while there, and then we'll get into the jacket that I made with said patches. Welcome to the channel, the place to come for spooky DIY home and lifestyle content all year long. Let's go to Midsummer Scream. Just a disclaimer as we get into the Midsummer Scream footage, if you notice that my outfits change, that's because I decided to consolidate the footage from the 3 days and sort by area of the convention rather than by day. My husband and I purchased the Gold Bat Pass, which provided VIP access to the haunts and panels, early admission for Saturday and Sunday, and admission into the after party Saturday night. If you plan to attend Midsummer Scream for the full weekend, I would definitely recommend getting the Gold Bat Pass. The vendor hall had more than 300 vendors total and included small businesses like the Halloween Shirt Company, whose shirts always have the most eye-catching art and are both comfortable and durable. Blood Paint and Stitches was there with an assortment of different styles of their iconic pumpkin bag. Mood Poison had an assortment of merchandise focused on horror references in bright, bold color. I got to meet Nick, known as Practical Peculiarities, and Greg, the founder of the Halloween Preservation Society. I'll link their content in the video description so you can go check them out. Save the Panduhs had patches, shirts, stickers, and bags, all featuring their original art. Lucky Hellcat has the best products featuring mashups of horror and pop culture icons. The Ghostbusters even came by for the occasion. Drew Roush had some of my favorite prints and stickers at the event, describing their work as a fleshy haunted house of cartoon curiosities. Live Creepy, or George Labrada, is a tattoo artist who also has merch of their work. The Hall of Shadows had 14 different scare attractions, including Fear Farm, which occupied the entrance into the Hall of Shadows. The Lionsgate House featured nods to many of the horror movies they've produced, including the Saw series, The Strangers, and Cabin in the Woods, to name a few. Probably my favorite video or photo we captured of ourselves was at the haunted car wash, and it makes me smile every time I watch it. The Elizondo haunt had a shorter walkthrough time, but had some of the best lighting from the outside and legit had me startled a couple times. Art Sideshow had one of the most engaging scare actors haunting the queue. This graveyard scene had me guessing how they pulled off this really cool ghost effect inside the crypt. The Realm of Shadow had a great backstory involving a cult and had some good scares. I loved this display that Calhoun set up, demonstrating some of the mechanics behind the effects they've used in their haunts over the years. The Drake Society was probably my second most favorite haunt after Lionsgate, including guests in A Hunt for Scooby-Doo. We attended a few panels on Sunday, which included Knott's Scary Farm, Nick's panel, where he spoke of the origins of Practical Peculiarities, and Halloween Horror Nights. All were so entertaining and informative.
Bringing the evil from the Emerald Isle, please welcome to the stage the one, the only creative director and executive producer of Universal Studios Hollywood's Halloween Horror Nights, John Murdy.
We also had the opportunity to attend the after party, where the 3 versions of Beetlejuice hosted, including the cinema, theater, and cartoon iterations of Beetlejuice.
Guys, I know I'm speaking a musical. Nobody speaks in a musical, people sing in a musical. You're not very good at this. No, but I am the theater kid, so get off this stage.
There were so many examples of folks in great costumes and some notable celebrities, including Michael and Art, who hit it off immediately. Once returning and then recovering for a minute from Midsummer Scream, I jumped into updating my denim jacket, which will include all the super awesome patches I just collected at the convention. My plan was to create a frame that will kind of contain all the patch shenanigans I'm attaching to the back of the jacket. To do this, I first collected measurements to determine what the dimensions of my frame should be, then took measurements of the collar for a little decal for the spot too. I wanted to have a phrase at the top of the frame, which I was thinking would be Bone to be Wilds, but this will later change as I get further into the project. The rest of the frame would be an assortment of floral bones and skulls. The floral assets I had inked up before for previous projects, but I needed bones and skulls, so I whipped out the sketchbook and some gouache to draw a few options for these. To start, I opened up a project with the artboard being the dimensions of my frame. Since I planned to have my frame symmetrical, I really only needed to create half a frame, so I divided up the artboard with a rectangle with half the width and locked this in place to keep it from moving as I worked. I took photos of my sketchbook pages of my recently created doodles, then opened these up in Illustrator. Using the image trace function, I was able to vectorize my drawings. After hitting expand under the image trace in the object menu, I was able to ungroup the image trace, delete everything I didn't plan to use, then place it and resize it inside my frame project. I repeated the image trace steps for my bones and skulls as well. Because my image was going to be a die cut basically, I needed to convert all my filled shapes to being an outline and edit how the assets were oriented so that there weren't overlaps in the design. With me drawing up the skulls with gouache, there were some areas where I wanted to clean up the perimeter to simplify the cut for the Cricut machine. I wanted to be sure to not over-edit though, so that the hand-drawn quality wouldn't be lost. Before duplicating and mirroring my frame half, I made sure to edit the rest of my filled shapes, turning them into outlines and deleting any cuts that would be too small to weed out later. After finalizing my frame and collar details, I found that my frame was going to be too large for the Cricut mat, so I divided my frame in half lengthwise. Then I selected each vector grouping, selected the Outline Pathfinder tool, adjusted the stroke weight, and then created a compound path in the object menu. Doing this will keep all your vectors arranged in the way that you have them in Illustrator, otherwise Cricut Design Space will rearrange the vectors to use the least amount of material when ready to cut. After making each vector grouping into a compound path, save each cut as an SVG file. I then logged into Cricut Design Space and uploaded each of my cuts to my project. In an effort to conserve my iron-on transfer material, I arranged my cuts so that they still fit within the cutting perimeter of the mat while also not overlapping. Be sure to remember to mirror your files before cutting, because otherwise your text and image will appear backwards when you go to iron. Because I had 4 separate files on my Cricut project, I needed to unite the images in Cricut Design Space so that they stayed arranged in the right way. This cut layout does require the larger cutting mat, which I think was totally worth the investment and is probably my most frequently used mat these days. For the iron-on transfer material, be sure to place the shiny side down on the mat with the matte side up. This cut took a fair amount of time and a lot of patience to weed out, but I think it was totally worth it. Once the weeding was complete, I was able to cut my designs apart and begin ironing them to my denim jacket. When transferring an iron-on transfer, I typically use a pressing cloth and put my iron on the cotton setting. Before we get into the patch segment of this project, I wanted to show you the patches I purchased from vendors at Midsummer Scream, as well as feature some of the patches I purchased over the last few years from small businesses that will more than likely be included in my jacket redesign. I want to say at the top that I've included everyone's shop link in the video description, so if you see anything of interest, go check out these small businesses. To start, I purchased this vampire puzzle piece patch from Live Creepy or George Labrada. George's work makes me think if a traditional style tattoo was also a lino print. I absolutely love all the linear texture and color that George includes in their work, and all the nods to horror and Halloween. Next up are the Sandworm and Tired Grim patches that I purchased from Save the Panduhs. I love Rick's street art style, which showcases his, what I like to call spray painter's touch, appearing both fluid and intentional. He has shirts, patches, and stickers currently in his online shop. I found this orange planchette patch from Mood Poison. Mood Poison describes themselves as having a flair for your despair, which I would say is pretty accurate and clever. They have nearly any merch category you may be looking for, including but not limited to shirts, keychains, stickers, and clocks, mostly with your fave horror icons. I got this big boy Sam patch from Lucky Hellcat. Lucky Hellcat is a badass artist who is the queen of the horror and pop culture mashup. Get your Bride of Frankenstein as a 90s Winking Cat merch in their online shop. Cold War Industries is where I found The Bride, Frankenstein's Monster, and the Black Cat with the neon green outline patches. Cold War Industries are local to Portland, Oregon, and they always have a great selection of horror-themed shirts, vinyl, posters, and accessories. I purchased this black and yellow cat patch, which suspiciously looks almost identical to Zinnia from Nana Williams. Nana Williams is a super accomplished artist, originally from Vienna, now residing here in Portland, Oregon, whose subject matter is often witchy but whimsical. As for the Hey Boo patch, I looked pretty extensively through my purchase records and I wasn't able to figure out which shop I purchased this little guy from. If you by chance recognize it and know who made it, please let me know so I can link up their shop in the video description. I really want to give the maker credit. After spending some time arranging my patches on my jacket, I pinned the patches in place once I was satisfied with the placement. I then machine stitched most of the patches, matching my top thread with the perimeter of each patch, and using a black bobbin to be discreet on the inside of the jacket. The only patch I had to hand sew was the sandworm because the patch itself is quite thick and it was put on top of the bulky seam above the breast pocket. I used a slip stitch for this step, catching the satin stitching, finishing the edge of the patch. I'm so excited about my new jacket. Once again, if you found any of the patches that I used for this project appealing, please go check out those shops through the shop links provided in the video description. I can imagine with all the big box corporate retailers releasing their Halloween merchandise right now that this probably affects the sales these small businesses make. So don't forget to shop with our friends who own small businesses this spooky shopping season. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. And thank you so much for visiting my creepy crap corner of the internet and for watching till the end. Now let's see those final shots.